Okay, so I think we're gonna finish chapter 11 today, which is motivation and emotion. Couple announcements. Your exam 2 scores are posted. The mean was 78, and last year was 82. So it was about the same as last exam. Who did worse compared to, okay, who did better? Okay, so for in-person students, more people did worse. For those who did better, what did you do differently that you think helped with your grades? Yes?
Didn't just study like definitions or like more like application examples?
Okay, you studied more about applications instead of definitions. Okay. Yes?
I saw the examples of it, like in my life, that were memorable.
Okay, so you try to find examples in your life and try to apply to what you learned. Okay, so those helped. For those did worse, what do you think caused that? Or you haven't thought about it? Yes?
I think for me it was mostly I didn't really like try memorizing the words.
Mhm.
I more looked at it of like applying them instead of actually memorizing. So when it came up to like it was an application trying to remember which word what the name of the application being used, I would get confused between some of them.
Okay. Okay.
Some of the examples I studied were very different from the ones on the test, and then when I went back and reread them, I changed them. And then when it showed you what was right, I had them originally correct. And I like second guessed myself.
So you kind of, you were overthinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty common. So sometimes you overthink about a question. I'm going to show you an example. But any other thoughts? And I remember asking you guys last time whether you had study group or not. Most people don't, right? How many of you have study groups? Okay, a couple of you. And for the ones who have study groups, if it helped you, raise your hand. If it didn't help you, raise your hand. So we have one thinks it didn't help, and then you guys think it's all right.
Yeah, like I didn't do great on the test, but I think without the study group, I would have done like very poorly. So
Okay.
maybe it helped. I still didn't do as good as I wanted to.
Gotcha. Okay. How much time have you guys spent on studying the exam? Would you say about the same as the first exam, or more or less?
I would say about the same.
About the same? Okay, some people. More? Okay. And less? Okay, it's actually pretty even. Because this is weird. For the past couple years, it's always increased, and you can see a big difference. And we have bigger classes before too. I'm just curious what happened here. Maybe the pandemic? I don't know. Yes.
I think for me, like I did pretty well on the first one, so then I started going online,
Mhm.
and then this time my score dropped. So.
Okay, so you said that you went online in terms of classes?
Yeah.
Okay, so would you think that in-person classes is more helpful or more engaging?
Yes.
Okay, I would agree with that because online studies, because no one's looking at you, it's very easy for you to just drift away your attention. When you're here in person, it's kind of hard to do that, right? You know, other people are looking at you, people behind you looking at your computers, so you're less likely to do something else. So you will need more self-disciplines if you want to do well using online classes. I'm not trying to encourage people to come to in-person classes if you don't think that's safe. It's just that it's kind of hard to control our behavior. I agree with that. And how many of you think that, oh, the first exam was pretty easy, so you were kind of like not being as serious for the second one? Some of you. Okay. Maybe I have some responsibility because I told you guys are gonna do well.
Hey, it's
Uh,
all your fault. Big circle right there.
I told you that because based on past experience. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that, right? Maybe I should have told you the second exam is going to be harder, you should study more. Now I learned, but I'm not going to teach here anymore, so useless information. Okay, well, hopefully you can do well on the next one. Again, it's not cumulative.
The next one's just, like, it's the final, right?
It's the final, but it's also the third exam.
Yeah.
It's not cumulative.
But it's gonna be during like final periods.
Yes, yes. Okay, all right. So here is a question on the exam. So you should see 1 point increase on your exam. I added 1 point to every person. So this question is, when you first brought your hamsters, Fudge and Brownie, only Fudge will let you pet him. After a few weeks of Brownie watching you pet Fudge, Brownie started to let you pet her. In this case, Brownie's new behavior is most likely to be the result of. Some people chose vicarious conditioning. Who did that? A couple. So I think this is an example that you might be overthinking. So here, I'm not talking about reactions at all, right? I'm just talking about observing, watching. This is like very obvious. So try not to overthink when you do questions. Only use the conditions that provide on the questions. Okay. Sometimes this might be a little hard to do. You tend to overthink. It's a way of thinking, your thinking pattern. If you want to change that, it might take time. So be aware and then make sure you can be familiar with this kind of questions. Yes?
This isn't related to this, but it's like related to another question on the exam.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference between conjunctive deafness and nerve deafness?
Could you say that again?
Or wait, it may have had a different. The
If,
types of deafness.
okay, how many of you have the same questions? If not, we are going to talk about that after class,
Okay.
so that we don't take too much time. So I don't think I specifically talk about the difference between vicarious conditioning and observe learning, right, in class. So I would take that as my responsibility, so I added 1 point to every person. But this is a good example to help you understand. Don't overthink in exams like this. Okay. Final project. How many of you have started it or started talking about it? Okay, good. So some of you. Please ask me if you have any questions. So I know that we are not going to talk about disorders until maybe next week, but it's good to start thinking about it or talk about it with your teammates. Your extra credit assignment and assignment 2, your grades should be posted by this week. Emily will be back this week, and we can try to get it done soon. Also, I sent it out another email. You can get another extra credits point towards your total grades. Yes.
For that one, can we just show up, or do we have to email them that we're going to show up? Like,
You will need to email them and schedule
Okay.
an appointment. So it doesn't matter which study that you go to. Make sure you ask them for a receipt to get your extra credits for this class. And then the Remap Professor review.
Oh yeah.
Come on, guys. It's been a week or 2 weeks. Have you
It's not been 2
decided?
weeks, it's been a week.
A week?
Yeah, because the game was last week before the test.
I think it's
Oh,
gonna be
yeah.
2 weeks or something.
The game was before that.
Yeah.
I told you guys.
The game was on.
Yep.
It's only been a week since you told me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you decided the person yet?
No.
No?
I mean,
All right, get on that. Well, if you don't hold on your end of bargain, your extra credit opportunity might be risky. Come on, guys. I will not make bet with you guys anymore if you do that to me. Okay, for today's agenda, we are going to talk about, we're going to finish motivation. We're going to do some practice questions, and then we're going to talk about emotions. So if you remember, if you don't remember, try to answer this as well. So while watching the movie, Casey's stomach growls. She tells her friend, "I'm really craving popcorn and candy." Her hunger is what, while her craving for popcorn is what?
D.
Okay, so you think hunger is drive,
I'd say
craving popcorn is need, and you think it's the opposite?
yes.
Okay, who thinks it's A? Who thinks it's B? C? Okay, and D? One person? All right. Oh. Okay, so it should be C. The hunger is the need, that's the biological need. And the drive is the psychological drive. And what would be the incentive here?
Going to the movies.
So that would be the environmental stimulus. Right here.
Well, she probably smelled the popcorn when she walked into the movies.
So the popcorn will be incentive. Okay? All right. After running for 8 miles, Emily feels very thirsty and is motivated to drink a huge glass of water. Did you get the joke? 8 miles? Have you seen the movie? Oh, come on, you guys.
Which movie?
It's a good movie. It's also a good song too. You should watch that. According to the drive reduction theory, Josh does this. Say, restore homeostasis. What about other people? Think it's A, B, C. Okay. Wait, choose C's. The second C. The one. Okay. So yes, it should be B. Oh, also on the exam, do you sometimes see some options that you've never seen before?
Yeah.
Don't choose that. Come on, guys. That's so obvious. If it's not on your textbook, it's not in your class. Don't choose that.
I'm always like, maybe I missed something. Because I was like, that seems about right.
See, that's the lack of confidence. If you really studied, you know what's on the textbook, you know what we talked about in class. You shouldn't think that way, right? So those are some just random options that I come up with. It's a testing skill. It also applies to other tests like SAT or GRE. If it's some option that really doesn't make sense, it's out there, you don't even know what that means, it's less likely that it's true if you studied. If you haven't studied, yeah, everything will be new to you. Yes?
So for this question, what would the drive, incentive, and need be?
The drive is, he thinks, Emily thinks he's thirsty. He wants to drink. The need is the biological need for water. Right? Incentive is seeing a refrigerator with a lot of drinks.
Okay.
Something like that. Okay. Next. Catherine and Michael's marriage may be explained by which model? Because he was wealthy enough to provide for her, and she was young enough to have children. You can just say out loud.
C?
C, hierarchical model.
See.
Okay, so if you think it's C, raise your hand. Okay, most people. If you think it's A, no one. B, D, 2%. Okay, so it should be D. I'm not really talking about meeting basic needs and then higher needs. Am I?
No.
So having children is to survive, to pass on genes, right? And then she needs resources to sustain life. So the best answer here will be evolutionary model. However, if I phrase it differently, she's not worried about food or anything, but she now wants to have higher needs to be met, and it needs money. And then that will be hierarchical. Does that make sense? Okay, but here, you don't have that information to tell you, okay, it's hierarchical. Okay. All right. Dan is a veteran video game player who seeks out new games that offer more challenges and excitement. His motivation is best explained by which theory or model? A? Okay, you guys agree? Okay, should be pretty simple. They want challenges, want arousal, so you can reach that optimal arousal level. Okay. All right. So last time we talked about human needs, right? We talked about meaning. We talked about what else? There was another human need. Kind of forgot. But so we kind of missed this one. It's the achievement motivation. So it's the desire to do things well, overcoming challenges and obstacles. And we had the Atkinson's model of achievement. So there are 3 factors. First is the motivation to succeed. So this is how much the individual wants to succeed. Second is the expectation of success. So this is whether the individual thinks success is a realistic or likely outcome. If it's not realistic, if it's not practical, the person will be less motivated to conduct that behavior, right? And then lastly is the incentive value. So how rewarding the success will be to the individual. If you work very hard and the reward is very small, you're less motivated. Yes?
For the second one, like would be a good example, like, because I'm a little confused about it. Like, if you're playing like basketball and you're going against like people that you know that are better than you, you're probably gonna not end up doing your best because you know you're gonna lose no matter what.
Let me try to find a better example. So let's say you're in this class and now you have a B. You know that it's possible for you to get an A, and then you're more motivated to study hard. But if you have D right now, it's towards the end of the semester, it's very hard for you to get an A. You're less likely to be motivated to study hard, right? Because you're gonna get a D anyway. Okay. Does it make sense for the 3 factors? Motivation? Okay, good. Any questions? What we just talked about, motivation. Good. Okay, so next we're going to talk about what emotion is. So quick question, what is an emotion in your opinion? How would you describe emotion?
A non-physical reaction to a stimuli, maybe.
Non-physical reaction to a stimuli. Okay. How would you guys describe it? When you have emotions. Or you can think of an example, and then how would you describe that? Is it like an experience?
A feeling towards outward,
Okay.
how you feel towards outward experiences.
Okay, how you feel,
Yeah.
right? That's the main point, right? How you feel. Okay. What else? You don't have to think like very scientifically how to find the best term to describe it. maybe you don't want to sound stupid describing like very plainly, but this is how we learn. Like we want to describe it in the easiest way so that maybe a 5-year can understand this. Okay? You don't need to find like very beautiful words to describe that. So what's an emotion? So we have feel, yeah. Something alters your mood. Okay, we have feeling, like how you feel. Something alters your mood, and then you say non-physical reaction.
Yeah.
What else? Like, emotion is so common, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath. You don't understand how that works. I'll take one more.
Feeling.
A feeling. Okay. All right. So, but it's kind of hard for you to describe maybe, but you kind of get a sense what this is, right? Emotion. We talk about this. Okay. Yes.
Wasn't it kind of like it feels like it's more of a spectrum rather than like a specific thing. It's kind of like impacted by like your neurotransmitters and stuff. And I feel like it's a balance of neurotransmitters that
Okay.
makes your emotions what it is. That's like I guess a scientific one. But
Okay. So you think that it's caused by chemicals in the brain. Okay. So it could be a biological reaction. Okay. All right. So emotions, we can also see this as a kind of motivator, right? Sometimes emotions can motivate you to do something. Okay, we can see it that way. In psychology, we have the term affect. So that's an umbrella term. This describes a variety of emotional phenomena. For example, when I study emotions, so my research interest is emotion, I would say that I'm an affective scientist. I study affect. Okay? And then emotions in psychology, it refers to brief, acute changes in conscious experience and physiology that occur in response to a personally meaningful situation. Okay, it sounds a little bit abstract, but I'm gonna try to summarize this for you. So this is brief, it's relatively short lasting, and you need to have an event to elicit that emotion. Okay. All right, and then mood, this is an affective state that operates in the background of consciousness and tend to last longer than most emotions. So for this one, you don't need to be consciously thinking about it, and it doesn't need to have a cause. You can have a mood for no reason. Do you know the difference between emotions and mood? Okay, let's say I get up this morning. For no reasons, I just feel blue today. And it's long lasting. I feel blue all day, or even to tomorrow. That's my mood. However, during this day, I encountered an old friend. I feel briefly happy about it. We talked about something that we liked. That's emotion. It's relatively short lasting. Okay?
So mood lasts longer, is like a longer period than emotion?
Relatively speaking. Yep. And then one is conscious and the other one is unconscious. One has a reason, the other one doesn't have to have a reason. Okay, now you get the terms. You good? All right. So another question, do you think that emotions are universal? So do you think that we experience emotions the same or similarly across countries or even cultures? So you think yes?
I think yes, but at the same time no, because I feel like
Hold on, it cannot be yes and no.
I feel like it depends on culture. Yeah, I feel like it depends.
So it's no.
Yeah, no.
Okay, it depends on culture. What do you guys think?
What was the question again?
Do you think that emotions are universal? No? Okay. All right. And you guys? Yes or no? Yes? Yes? Okay. Interesting. Okay. So now I'm going to show you a video. So the short answer is some emotions could be universal and some emotions might not be.
So it can be yes and no.
You're right. You're right. So yes, some emotions are universal and some are not. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna show you this video, and then you can kind of get a sense how that worked out, and then I'm gonna talk about the elements of emotions.
Project today. We're interested in learning about emblems. They're different in different cultures. So although most cultures in the world do this when they mean yes and do this when they mean no, some
Okay, 1 second. I need to make sure I share the sound with online students.
You did. We can hear it. Okay.
Oh, you okay, good. Where is it? Hold on.
cultures do not.
Well, today I will tell you about the culture that I grew up in, which
Okay.
is the Egyptian. We have a gesture for tomorrow. We do this.
This is tomorrow.
Yes.
I want that.
It gets better
Okay.
after tomorrow.
Distress.
This is fine. This is fine. But this is insulting.
Okay.
Among human cultures, gestures are as diverse as spoken languages. Very little appears to be universal. But when it comes to human emotion, researchers have found that there are amazing similarities between peoples. How we express our emotions might be the closest thing we have to a common language.
Surprise is the briefest emotion. You can't be surprised for long. I'm the source of the surprise here, and I just was fortunate enough that I had the camera up to my eye, and I was able to capture it.
In 1967, Oakland psychologist Paul Ekman set out to resolve a dispute over the nature of human emotions. Charles Darwin had written in 1872 that regardless of their culture, all people possessed the ability to express certain emotions in exactly the same way.
On the voyage of the Beagle, he spent 5 years going around the globe, and he found that wherever he went, he couldn't understand a word they were saying, but he thought he could understand their expressions. And so that suggested to him, these must be universal.
By the late 1950s, when Ekman finished his PhD in psychology, Darwin's view had largely faded into the background. Ekman's contemporary, renowned anthropologist Margaret Mead, argued that all human behavior, including our emotions, stems from our particular culture.
Everyone assumed Mead was right, because that fit the world view that dominated the West and the East. But I wasn't certain. And how could you be certain?
To put Darwin and Mead's opposing views to the test, it was important for Ekman to find an isolated culture.
I needed people who had seen no photographs, no film, no television, and few, if any, outsiders. So I could be certain it wasn't watching John Wayne rather than your evolutionary history that might be responsible for similarities.
Ekman managed to find the perfect group in New Guinea. Besides some contact with missionaries, the South Foray people lived in isolation. Ekman figured out an easy way to find out how the Foray expressed different emotions.
Show them 3 photographs, tell them a simple story, and just let them point to the photograph that fits it. So they would be told a story like, your child has died. Which of these 3 people's child has died? Just point. You're about to fight. Which of these 3 people? And in 4 or 5 weeks, we tested 5% of the culture. Enormous, and the results were resounding. Darwin was right.
Ekman confirmed that there are 6 universal emotions whose expression is recognized by people around the world: joy, anger, sadness, surprise, fear, and disgust. In the 1980s, he added contempt to the list.
You're going to tighten your lips. You can.
Since Ekman made his original observations, other researchers have sought to answer the same question.
Open your mouth.
Are emotions the result of nature or nurture?
So we're going to put it together with the upper face. One way to answer that question is to study blind individuals, and especially congenitally blind individuals, because those individuals could not possibly have learned to model the expressions through observation.
Matsumoto found that congenitally blind athletes made the same facial expressions in the same circumstances as sighted athletes.
You probably guess whether this person won or lost the match if we take a little close-up on her face. She's got the lip corners being pulled down and the lower lip is being pushed up just a little bit under the chin. This is a classic expression of sadness or distress that you would see in anybody who's having this emotion.
So if emotions are innate to all humans, they must be useful to us in some way. As it turns out, they're essential for our survival from the moment we're born.
Those smiles from our infant are one of the reasons we put up with the crap, but also being able to tell when they're afraid, when they're angry, what's disgusting to them, very important. So you could make the whole argument that the whole reason this system is there is for child rearing.
Further proof that emotions serve an evolutionary purpose is that each emotion prepares the body for a specific...
Okay, all right. So according to Paul Ekman, we have basic emotions. So those are simple emotions that you're born with, and they are often automatic and universal recognizable, according to Ekman. So he suggested 7 basic emotions: anger, sadness, fear, joy, disgust, surprise, and contempt. And the facial expressions here are like a illustration. So they did some kind of experiments. They show people pictures using those kind of facial expressions. In my opinion, that's one of the limitations of the study, because those emotions are fake. They're not real emotions. When you feel surprised, you don't necessarily act this. It's exaggerated, if it makes sense. And also, the study that he did back then showing white people's face to people in New Guinea, that's another limitation. They're not showing the people's real reaction or emotion expressions locally. They should take pictures of the person locally and then show them. There's just like a lot of limitations for this theory, but right now is one of the most popular theory in emotions. Also, the field of emotion is kind of new. It only existed for less than 100 years. So there are a lot of things that we're still talking about in debates. And I'm going to show you some other examples as well. So for basic emotions, Ekman thinks that it involves inactivity in our autonomic nervous system. So if you remember, for our sympathetic system, that's the fight or flight reactions. And this is implicated in fear and anger, such as our increased heart rate. Our digest is associated with decreased heart rate. So most negative emotions are associated with the sympathetic system. You can think of some examples of your own. For parasympathetic system, that's the rest and digest. And that's implicated in mostly positive emotions. So if you're happy, it's less likely for you to engage in fight or flight reactions, right? Does that make sense? Okay, all right. So that's for basic emotions. Next, we have complex emotions. Those are self-conscious emotions that requires cognitive processing and learning, often influenced by the culture. So this is usually not universal. We can also argue that those happy or sad, are those universal? We don't really know. But for the complex emotions, we know for sure this is influenced by culture. Some examples include embarrassment, shame, guilt, and pride. How many of you know the term schadenfreude? 2. So what's schadenfreude?
Isn't it schadenfreude?
Huh?
I think it's pronounced differently, but isn't it like joy at someone else's like misery.
Yes, exactly. How do you pronounce this?
Schadenfreude.
Schau. Okay,
It's
I
like
can't
it's
pronounce
really
it.
German.
It's a German word, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the experience of pleasure that comes with witnessing the troubles, failures, and humiliating of another. Sometimes, have you guys experienced this before? Yes? No? Liar. If you've seen prank videos, that's kind of like this. So we don't really have a term in English to describe this, right? So you don't really think that I have that emotion. But for Germans, they have that term, and then they know that they have that emotion. So language also influences our emotion experiences. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So here is another debate. Are emotions discrete or continuous? So are emotions separate from each other? Happy is definitely different from sadness, or are they just on a continuous? So from positive to negative to less arousal to very arousal. What do you guys think? Yes?
I kind of feel like they're on a continuum between them. Because
Okay.
otherwise you'd like just jump between them.
Okay, so you think it's continuous? Yes?
I think they're kind of continuous, but more discrete.
More
Just, like,
discrete?
It plays on your mood
Uh-huh.
as to like how you're gonna feel.
Okay.
What you're gonna feel.
Okay. So you think it's more discrete because you can...
Specifically each emotion.
Okay, so you can,
But
in
they're
your opinion, you can
really
distinguish happy versus sad,
Right.
right? But in your opinion is they're just on a continuous.
Mhm.
Okay. What about you guys?
I think it's great.
Discrete? Okay. Continuous? Okay, if you think it's continuous, raise your hand. Okay, if you think it's discrete. Okay, about half and half. That's exactly what's happening in the field. A lot of effective scientists think it's discrete, a lot of them think it's continuous. And there's a big debate actually between this department and the department that I came from, my undergrads. There's a beef between them. It's pretty funny, and you can see they have arguments on publications, on journals, go back and forth. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm going to show you why. There's a new research kind of demonstrate that, and I'm with them. So discrete means that each emotion is essentially different from each other, such as the movie, what's the name? Inside Out, yeah. You can see very discrete emotions for each one, right? Continuous is suggesting that emotions is measured by how positive and negative and how excited, calm the person is. So you can put them on this axis, x-axis and y-axis. From low to high arousal to negative to positive, we call it the valence. So those are the two theory for emotions, how we classify them. Right? There's a new research recently. It suggests that emotions are distinct, so they are discrete, but there are some fuzzy boundaries between each emotions. I'm going to show you on this chart, this example. So for example, sexual desire and romance here, I'll show you. They are discrete, but it can be fuzzy in the middle. So when does romance become sexual desire? That could be fuzzy, right? So that's one of my research here is I'm trying to study the emotion of love. There are some other examples like anxiety and fear. They're different, but it can be fuzzy in the middle, right? So there are so many other examples, and here is a link that you can go to. It kind of shows you all the pictures to elicit that emotions. It's pretty interesting. Also, you need to be at least 18 to do this. It's kind of explicit, okay? Especially for sexual desire and disgust. All right. Next, we are going to talk about the elements of emotions. So now I want you to take a look at this picture. I'm going to move the mouse away. So about 20 seconds. Try to focus and then try to think what this reminds you of, what comes to your mind. Okay, try to focus. Same with online students. All right, so remember that feeling. What are you experiencing?
Fear.
Fear? Okay. Would you agree? Fear? Did you experience surprise?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but mostly fear, right? Because of the picture and the loud noise. You're like little Albert, right? Okay, so how many of you experienced goosebumps? No? Increased sweating? Some dilated pupils? You can't really experience that, but increased heartbeat. Almost everyone. Dry mouth? Some? Okay. All right, so those will be physiology elements of emotion, right? And that will be the response for fear. Okay? And how did you act? Did you startled?
Yep.
Okay. Did you jump? Okay. Did someone scream? I don't remember. No? Okay. What about your facial expressions? I can't really see with your mask on, but were you like kind of surprised or?
Wide-eyed.
Okay. All right, so those will be your behavior, and that will be another element for your emotion. I did this in the past years. Usually the reaction is pretty funny. I had one student like jump out of the chair, and then the guy was like sweating. Okay, so other than those two, physiology and behavior elements, we also have the facial expression. And we usually refer this to the micro expression. So it's not like the fake facial expressions that you see in those pictures. People don't really act that way. I'm going to show you some videos to demonstrate this. So usually for facial expressions, they're very brief, about 1/25 seconds or less than half a second. And they're automatic. You can't really control it. So if you can read people's micro expressions, you can kind of read their emotions, even if they are trying to suppress it or they're trying to exaggerate it. They can't really control their micro expression. So here is a video.
Using more recent footage, Ekman can show us what the secret agents were spotting.
There is one sign of concealment, and that is a micro-expression, an expression that's very reduced in time. About a 25th of a second is typical, while the normal facial expression is a half second to 2 or 3 seconds. In this experiment, we found out what people had the strongest convictions about. In the particular person I'm going to show you, it was about capital punishment. And then they were given the choice to either truthfully describe their opinion or to lie and claim to hold the exact opposite of their opinion. So let's take a look at him.
Personally, I think that they should be killed. I mean, it should be executed.
Well, we've already seen a little micro-expression in the forehead, and let me just back that up. Now it's those little wrinkles that are going to appear there. They're very fast. And realize what he's saying is, personally, I believe they should be executed. Okay. Now, if he's telling the truth and if he's confident about this, that probably shouldn't be occurring.
They should be killed. I mean,
okay. That was a distress expression. Inner corners going up. Short wrinkles in the center of the forehead. Okay? We have the equipment to see these things. I can teach anyone in 30 minutes to see microexpressions, which they didn't see before. When I teach policemen, it's the thing that I like the most, because 30 minutes later they can do things they couldn't do before.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, with that woman, with that woman, with that woman.
Alright, so that's a quick example. This is old, and you can see the screen is small, and it's kind of hard to see a lot of the micro expressions. But now they have new research about this, and this guy, he actually recorded people's expressions in 4K, and I embedded the link here. If you're interested, you can watch that.
My name is Patrick Fizovsky. I'm the founder of the Center for Body Language, and also thank you.
This is just a quick
So
example.
which emotions do you think that are hidden here? Let's have a look at the solution. When we look closer, have a look at the eyebrows. First, the eyebrows go downward, and then you see the upper eyelids going upward. So first you see the eyebrows going downward.
Alright, so those are very tiny. It's very hard to see, but once you get used to it, you get training on this. It's hard to unsee this. And you know this in acting, in movies or TV shows. You see a lot of fake expressions. It kind of influenced your enjoyment because you see, oh, that guy's faking it. But it's pretty useful.
This is
Hold on. Okay, so the functions of emotions, besides to motivate people to act as a motivator, emotions also influence people's thoughts and memories. I kind of mentioned this in the past when we talked about memories. So people remember things better with emotion experiences. For example, people tend to recall less details at a random day compared to an emotional day such as 9/11 or an election day, etc. So that's pretty much about emotions. Do you have any questions? We have about like a minute. No? No questions? Alright, that's it. If you are interested in micro facial expressions, I think we have a class here. My advisor has a lunch. She's a expert on this, and if you're interested, you can kind of look out for her classes. And there's online training you can do too. It costs a lot, but if you're interested. Alright, I will see you guys on Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Can we talk about questions about the test?
Yeah, of course.
Are you
You guys can all come here just in case you have similar questions, and when I explain to one person, like you can all hear.
How was your weekend?
It's alright. I was packing, and my flight got canceled, so I need to book different flights. It's hectic, but it's alright. Okay, so you go ahead. What's your question?
Oh, so like I have the questions here.
Okay.
I don't mind. So like for this one with the candle, the reason I think it was pretty hard to I thought it was superliminal threshold, because you're trying to see how I interpret a question, because it doesn't tell you whether she sees it 50% of the time. It's just the distance and the amount of light. So I was thinking it's the amount of light she can see because of distance, because you can't see.
Right, you're overthinking. I just said the lowest level.
Okay, but then why would it be absolute then? Because it's an absolute. You see it 50% of the time.
If you go back and look at the definition.
Yeah, the definition right here from your absolute threshold, the lowest level, so they can be 50% of the time. And then you have subliminal below the absolute threshold, so that still is the smallest.
You're overthinking. That's all I can say.
Right. And then this one.
The spicy one.
Yeah, the spice one. Here.
Mm-hmm.
I think based off how the question was worded, it's pretty hard to tell that she was trying to find the different whether you can tell the difference.
Hold on, let me read the questions real quick. Kendra loves spicy curry, but her husband prefers mild food. Starting with the mild curry, Kendra increases the spiciness every time she cooks. Finally, her husband complains that she made the wrong kind of curry and it's too spicy. With this exercise, Kendra assessed her husband's what threshold.
I thought it was subliminal because she just wanted to see how high from what is he normally likes.
I thought it was super lemon.
Yeah, because I was thinking he was going above the absolute.
And
then
no, the person can still taste spice.
Yeah.
It's just the difference that he likes it or not.
The key word is mild, like them starting it at mild.
Mild,
that
but-
shows that that's a difference in spice.
But you can also see like the
Mild,
amount of spice he can take. Like that's the way you can word it. Like you can think about it. And I know
That's the amount of spice you can take, not that you can detect.
Okay. So
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. But like, I get it. But like here, then in with knowing that, like, what would be the like main like key word here, or like key like would tell you that it's telling the difference instead of the subliminal.
From mild
Mhm.
to too spicy.
So it's because it's going from mild to too spicy. That's you're trying to find the difference, and because too spicy could also count as like subliminal. The
You
super.
cannot. Because when you can detect spice, whether it's mild or too spicy, you can detect spice.
So if it's so it would
That's not the
count.
threshold.
So it would count as subliminal if you can't taste it anymore because it's so spicy.
No, if you cannot taste spice at all. If I ask you, did I put spice in it? You said no. That will be subliminal. But if it's subliminal, it means that you can taste spice. It doesn't matter how spicy it is.
Okay. Yeah, because based on the definition, it was like it says above the absolute threshold. So
Mhm.
I took it as like above your limit, like above.
No.
Okay.
The absolute threshold is whether you can detect it or not.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
For the quizzes weekend, we just didn't have one, or was it?
This week?
Yeah, after
The last week?
weekend. Last weekend, yeah.
No, because you had the exam.
Oh, I was just making sure.
Yeah.
Because I think it said it was something to do, so I was just making sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the exam. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you explain the difference between nerve deafness and conductive deafness? Because I don't
Yes.
remember us going over it. Or I don't
So
remember on nerve, but
the nerve one is you have damages in the brain, the neural part.
Okay.
But the conductiveness is you have damages in the bones.
ossicles?
Yeah, bones or outer ear structures.
So if you had like damage in like the cochlea, or you had like a cochlear implant, would that be because of nerve deafness?
I think that will be conductive.
Okay.
Cochlear is still like inner ear, right? If I
I'm
remember
not sure.
correctly.
It's like some gateway. I can't remember if that's part of transduction or.
Yeah, I can't remember either, but it has like a physical structure that you can bend and straighten out, right?
Yeah.
I would think that should be part of the conductive deafness, unless it's I said it differently on the exam.
Is there any difference in like how they're caused? Because that was the big thing.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, conductive deafness can caused by physical damage. Maybe you had a concussion or got something, a bug fly in, and then someone shoot water or something. But nerve damage is something like you play the music too loud, and then
It's like long-term exposure to.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't remember us going over it. I mean, it doesn't matter because I got that point back.
Okay.
And so-
Cool. All right.
So, yeah,
Sounds
thank you.
good. No problem.